Based on President Bola Tinubu's 500,000 hectares farming project to combat hunger nationwide, now the federal government is cultivating 4 food crops, including rice, wheat, maize, cassava, on hectares of farmlands in 30 states of the federation. Now, officials of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security explained that though 500,000 hectares was pronounced by the president, a lot has been around this issue, and I'm being joined in the studio by agribusiness coach, African farmer Mogaji, to talk more about this. Well, good afternoon. It's good to have you in the studio.
Good afternoon.
And compliments of the season.
Same to you.
Well, we are back again, 2024. Excuse me. What do you make of this in its entirety? 500,000 hectares. To me, it's a big deal. How feasible is this? Yes, let me ask that way.
500,000 hectares is not big deal when you're talking to practitioners. Because when you deeply analyze the 500 hectares,
yes,
and the output that will be coming from the 500 hectares, you would know that they presented a small figure to the president vis-a-vis what is being announced. When the president is speaking, or when the presidency speaks, you're speaking, with facts. So the 500,000 hectares that we're talking about, if we cultivate 500,000 hectares and we get 6 tons of maize, let's say we only cultivate 1 crop and we cultivate 6 tons of maize, we'll be getting about 83,000 tons, metric tons. That's about 830,000 100 kg bags. Only one company that produces livestock feed will consume all the corn produced on the 500,000 hectares. One company in the country. So it's not that big. Then when we look at the cultivation, you only bulldoze, because they're saying we will clear.
Yeah.
You only clear in the dry season. When it's the rainy season, the bulldozers will sink. So if we look at 5 months in the year, so that means about 155 days that the bulldozers will work.
Yeah.
So what's 155 days, and the bulldozer, the 300 horsepower, the big ones, will bulldoze 1 hectare, that is 15 plots of land per day. And we're assuming that it's a primary, meaning they've bulldozed it before. It will take about 3 years plus. That is the data. That is the real data. Ask anybody involved in the value chain. That is the data. So when you look at the data vis-a-vis what they are allowing the president to talk about, the president is talking about we will feed, bridging the gap, make food available, and you are mentioning figures that in reality will take about 3 years plus. It's not rocket science. Moreover, even these bulldozers are not readily available in the country, in the quantity needed. So we need to be talking about bigger numbers, but it's not the government that should be clearing these lands. Government should be collaborating with private sector. Government should be talking with the multinationals in the beverage, in the FMCGs, to say, okay, we would make this available to you. They have the funds. We will facilitate this. You put in your money, we will protect. If they're afraid of insecurity, we will deploy national resources there. You fund it. So that conversation, we're still talking about government. The handlers, and I won't say I'm sorry to do this, but when they're allowing the president to talk, they should be providing facts.
Yeah, to back it up.
To back it up. So what we are hearing, from the presidency, and it's not just this administration, over the years, the assumptions that feed the conversations are not accurate. They are totally in disconnection with reality. So all the plans from administration to administration do not get implemented vis-a-vis what is projected and announced. So we need, the people in the Ministry of Agriculture or the consultants, because before the minister got there, these figures were out. The consultants to rejig this and work with the realities. Rather, I would be advising, based on years of experience, that there are over 500,000 hectares dormant, belonging to private sector who have been negatively affected by insecurity and COVID and co. those are the people we need to fund, and more than more, when you do the calculation, the very basic and conservative calculation of clearing 500,000 hectares at 600,000 per hectare, which is conservative, we're talking about 300 billion naira. With 300 billion naira, it should be used as working capital as against clearing. Let the private sector clear those lands. Government need to feed the people, make food available very fast. So, I'm not saying the attention, in the right place, but it can be done. This thing is not rocket science. I've always said it. 6 months of, laser focus, we will feel a lot of impact, but we're not moving in the right direction.
But let's look at this staple food, I can call them, right?
Yes.
Maize, rice, wheat, millet. This is what they're really focusing on. Why just this? Why just this?
So it's a challenge again. Tomatoes is there.
Yeah.
Government cannot just pick 4, okay? There are value chains involved in this. Once they, trigger the private sector, and what government should be doing, see, the people putting in this data for government are focusing on poverty alleviation instead of promoting prosperity. So bring out some data around, this is the gap of tomato needed, this is what we produce, this is what is needed, this is the amount of money to be invested, this is the amount of money government is spending and private sector is spending. When people see the numbers and you give them a platform, Nigerians will take advantage. But we're not showing people where the money is and how to plug in. We're talking about what government is doing. Meanwhile, government is just a facilitator. Government is a catalyst. It's the private sector. I say this, over the years, spanning 30 years now, almost all government initiatives and interventions, you see one administration drop it, another one will pick something else, but the private sector has been the one feeding. So the private sector, when I say private sector, I'm not even talking about elites, people like you and I. I'm talking about the rural farmers. Come rain, come shine, they would farm. So we don't just eat sorghum, millet. Let's leave those ones for the companies. And let me say this to you. Most of the millet and sorghum also utilized by the breweries and co is imported.
Yes.
It's imported into this country. Yes. And we have comparative advantage. Millet can grow everywhere. Sorghum can grow. The things we need to focus on is we need to focus on these multinationals so they don't move like the pharmaceutical. If we were producing cornstarch is a major product that they are importing, both the beverage, both the cereal companies. If we are producing corn to make cornstarch and they don't have to, import, it reduces the pressure on the dollar. We're not thinking private sector government partnership. We're thinking government. And what we're seeing so far is we're talking about 3 Ps. And what I call 3 Ps, product, program, produce. Product, program, produce. Meanwhile, that is not the work of government at any levels. The work of government is to make sure that the parastatals under them are efficiently and effectively running. Once they are effectively and efficiently running, they will take care of the companies and will be food secure. You take your focus off the parastatals and focus on projects, which is part of programs, and produce. When you hear produce, oh, we're growing tomato, you want to grow corn, you want to grow, we eat more cassava, we eat more yams. Once we take care, and we've talked about school feeding, and the president, it's a good one that the president says when we're suspending that for some time.
Yeah.
Why? Because the design of school feeding, we studied it in California, in Colorado and in Iowa. School feeding, the food should be produced in the local government or the neighboring local government. That is when you reduce food spoilage. Food doesn't have to travel for long, but what do we do here? Yeah. We take one region and we don't develop. So a lot of these things need to be rejigged. And I'm happy that the government is saying, for now, let's place a peg on this and let's make things work. But the people advising need to be providing the right input. If not, 4 years down the line, it will be another, challenge.
Well, I also heard the minister saying they want state governments to support them. And specifically, they're saying, give us credible farmers' data so that it will help us to enable interventions. What do you think about the present kind of data that we have? How can it be harmonized so that states, federal government can know where we're headed?
We don't have data. That's the truth. For farmers, I use the word don't have data, because we talk about farmers. The farmers are not online. When they are online, they're on social media, to relax themselves. We don't have data. Ask every state governor, every local government governor, how many farmers do you have? Do you know their addresses? They don't have it. They have it when there's a new program coming up. And the same farmer we have duplicated data. The same farmer is planting sorghum and also planting maize. So those data is duplicated. So bottom line is, the first thing we need to do is to get the data. 2016 to 2020, there was a roadmap launched of food security. There's a statement in the introduction that says that we have 14 million farmers. It's online, however not verified. And it was pushed out as a national document. So the governors need to invest in data and not depend on foreign donors to come and fund the project. Governor Fashola did something really fantastic when we talk about the cattle we eat and the sheep and goats. They spent about 2 years or so to count how many cows come to Lagos. And when we say Lagos, it's not when you are coming into Lagos by that. Yes. No, that's not part of Lagos. And so from that data, then, that's the data we're still using. And it's obsolete, but that's still what we're using. But at least we know it's real. All other data is not real. Until we have data, until we value abstract, we'll not be able to feed this country.
It's worrisome. Governmental collaboration is just something that everyone is talking about. What do you make of some of the moves so far? Now, aside this 500,000 hectares of land that we expect to be cultivated, there was an emergency placed on food security. Immediately the president came in, and a lot of moves have been made, and I think the central bank this time is moving a bit far from supporting agriculture, not like what we used to have before now. So what sort of interventions are you expecting moving forward?
So first thing first, the CBN is doing what is right by moving away from the associations.
Yeah.
The body's leadership of these associations has been politicized. The associations are supposed to be pressure groups telling government, this is what we need, let's sit at the round table. But if you remember, in this country, it was an association that bought 100 million form for someone. So why should government be funding an association that can afford to buy forms? That means you're comfortable. So the CBN is taking the right decision so they can go back to the basis to become pressure groups and to advise government. Now, the CBN is taking some of the departments out of Abuja to other states. The Ministry of Agriculture also needs to begin to do that, to say this department operates from the region. When you operate from the region, then we are able to have the real data. We are able to have the real feedbacks of what is happening. Climate change is still not it's not reflecting in the conversation of Ministry of Agriculture and every other government or local government. It has rained heavily like 3-4 times this year in January. 2024 rain pattern is mirroring 2009 and 2012. If it follows through with 2009 and 2012 rain pattern, by February, end of February, rain will become stable. If rain becomes stable, then it alters all the plans that we are currently seeing. But I can say this. One good thing that I see is that we have a president that is playing the long-term game. Okay? And is not, afraid to take tough decisions. We need tough decisions more in the agri sector to be able to feed. So I know we will get it right, but when we will get it right, that's the cost. We're already losing the opportunities. Like tomato again this year has crashed. It's going to be close to 70,000 a basket based on dollar prices and co from May, June.
I would ask you, how does that affect the tomatoes that
the fertilizer we use imported. All the seeds imported. All the agrochemicals, all imported. Everything is dollar-based. But guess what? The rainfall that just happened around Southwest and co, we've not heard state, not federal now, state and local government come out to say, prepare your land. You will save time. You know, we've not heard them talk to NIMET. You know, they're supposed to be proactive. The state and local government is currently not proactive. So what should happen now is the state should be looking at cultivating the tomatoes, peppers that will go to like 60, 70,000 this year, May, June, July. I would like to see a situation where this administration will be able to say, we stop this challenge that has been there since 1999 that I've been monitoring. You know, there are a lot of low-hanging fruits that we're not seeing. But I know they will get it right, but at what cost? These are things that we should be looking. What are the low-hanging fruits? And let's nip it at the bud. But you can perform an agricultural economic miracle in 6 months with the right focus and the right people advising, giving the right input.
Well, almost finally, the federal government also launched the dry season farming, I think in some states and all of that. Can you tell us more about what that means for us?
Okay, so the dry season farming that was launched is mostly focused around wheat.
Okay. There is this target around this wheat market.
Okay, so I've produced wheat.
Well, I'm also aware, sorry to interject again, I'm aware that we import most of the wheat we use. There's an issue with the taste or something.
First and foremost, we don't have comparative advantage on wheat. I had a conversation with, I think, the second Nigerian plant genetist, I think about 27 years ago. They were, younger people who carried out soil samples, and they're saying, sorghum, millet, corn, these are comparative advantage, cassava and co. We are looking at what we don't have and not focusing on what is in our hands. So the wheat is an initiative also co-funded by African Development Bank. The developmental partners have their goals and they bring it in. It's a welcome advantage, but will that move us forward? The quality of wheat that the manufacturers want is not the ones we are growing. So yes, welcome development. However, are these staples? Bread is no longer, and spaghetti is no longer staples again. It's expensive, so we should be growing our yams and co. So can we focus on what we have, not what we don't have? Every time we're looking at what we don't have, meanwhile, what we have is wasting away. There are too many things we can do. We can grow gum arabic. We can grow vanilla. We can even grow ofio, tiger nuts. Yeah. Where Walmart approached us some time ago to export tiger nuts because it's organically grown in Nigeria. A lot of pineapples are organically grown. Mangoes are organically grown. We should focus on our organic strength rather than looking at what we don't have. Wheat is produced at a certain period in the year, and climate, if it goes hot when it should be cold, you've lost the money. I've lost the money before in Jigawa. So, many of those things we find out, are these people not going to the field? Are they not talking to the farmers? A lot of things that we need to do. So, sometimes it just breaks my heart. I haven't been there. It's just ask the players, and we would be food secure. I say this, 6 months of focus, we'll be able to touch a couple of things and, beat it down. But we're not focusing on the right things. The dry season farming, we should be talking about, okay, tomatoes that normally would be expensive, will be very cheap January, February, and the farmers will be praying and crying to get a market. Could we have gotten some cottage processors in each local government? I've seen this happen in Gombe. That is wasting. Could we have gotten that? That is but we've missed that. May, June is coming. Can we do something? If we are not doing May, June, can we do dry season again? We launch this dry season program every year, and I must give it to this administration. They launched the dry season program earlier than other administrations. When I mean other administration, spanning 15, 20 years. I stand to be corrected. Ministry of Agriculture has it. So this administration has launched it better, earlier. I only hope that we can continue with this trajectory of starting early. Most times it's around February, March that they launch dry season program that starts in October. So yes, there's a measure of milestones being achieved, but these things is not rocket science. The information is available. They just need to ask. Or the handlers of the presidency should not be afraid to call the people that know and ask
questions.
Well, you see, what pains most of us is that when they hear us speak, they don't copy it right. Because it's half information that we can give, because of the limited time. They just speak it and put it in a document, and we hear it again and we laugh. Because it's half knowledge. So they just need to engage more. And there are many people out there who are willing, who love the country. And guess what? Now we've decided that we will talk. We will provide information, anything they don't want to do, we'll provide information to let them see the right perspective and what should work. But we have to feed this nation. If not, we paid for it in the last 4 years, the practitioners. We're not going to pay for it. We're going to talk to help the administration get it right first time.
I must thank you so much. It's been an interesting conversation, I must say, an eye-opener, really. I've been speaking to Africa farmer Mogaji, the agribusiness coach. He's a farmer facilitator. Thank you so much. It's really good to have you start the week with us on Business Nigeria.
Thank you for having me.